Celtic Tales is a fascinating collection of 25 folk and fairy tales set in the ancient lands of Ireland and Scotland. This fascinating YouTube video offers us an immersive journey into a world of magic, legend, and stunning adventures told by generations of Celtic people. With majestic scenery in the background, the video takes viewers on an amazing journey back in time, where ancient gods, faeries, and heroes come to life before our eyes. Each story is steeped in deep mythological roots and the wisdom of Celtic culture, giving us a unique perspective on the world and human nature. You'll hear of daring warriors able to fight demons and creatures from other worlds, of generous fae willing to help or play a cruel trick, of love and betrayal, of journeys to mysterious lands, and of the triumph of good over evil. The visually appealing video will immerse you in a Celtic atmosphere through colorful illustrations and clever use of animation. A captivating narrator will bring each story to life with his vivid and engaging narrative style, as if you were sitting around a fire under the stars listening to a storyteller impart the wisdom and heritage of past times. Celtic Tales is more than just a collection of stories. It's a unique opportunity to experience the spirit of ancient Celtic culture, draw inspiration from magical worlds, and expand your horizons. Don't miss your chance to embark on an exciting journey back in time that will fill your life with magic and unforgettable adventures.
Chapter 14 of Celtic Fairy Tales. Celtic Fairy Tales selected and edited by Joseph Jacobs. Chapter 14. Jack and his comrades. Once there was a poor widow, as often there has been, and she had one son. A very scarce summer came, and they didn't know how they'd live, till the new potatoes would be fit for eating. So Jack said to his mother one evening, "Mother, bake my cake and kill my hen, till I go seek my fortune, and if I meet it, never fear, but I'll soon be back to share it with you." So she did as he asked her, and he set out at break of day on his journey. His mother came along with him to the yard gate, and says she, "Jack, which would you rather have, half the cake and half the hen with my blessing, or the whole of them with my curse?" "Oh, musha, mother," says Jack, "why do you ax me that question? Sure you know I wouldn't have your curse, and Dammer's estate along with it." "Well then, Jack," says she, "here's the whole lot of 'em, with my 1,000 blessings along with them." So she stood on the yard fence, and blessed him as far as her eyes could see him. Well, he went along, and along, till he was tired, and ne'er a farmer's house he went into wanted a boy. At last his road led by the side of a bog, and there was a poor ass up to his shoulders near a big bunch of grass he was striving to come at. "Ah then, Jack Astor," says he, "help me out, or I'll be drowned." "Never say it twice," says Jack, and he be pitched in big stones and sods into the slob, till the ass got good ground under him. "Thank you, Jack," says he, when he was out on the hard road. "I'll do as much for you another time. Where are you going?" "Faith, I'm going to seek my fortune, till harvest comes in, God bless it. And if you like," says the ass, "I'll go along with you. Who knows what luck we may have?" "With all my heart, it's getting late. Let us be jogging." Well, they were going through a village, and a whole army of gossoons were hunting a poor dog with a kettle tied to his tail. He ran up to Jack for protection, and the ass let him such a roar of him, that the little thieves took to their heels as if the old boy was after them. "More power to you, Jack," says the dog. "I'm much obleeged to you. Where is the baste and yourself going?" "We're going to seek our fortune till harvest comes in." "And wouldn't I be proud to go with you," says the dog, "and get rid of them ill-conducted boys, pursuing to 'em." "Well, well, throw your tail over your arm and come along." They got outside the town, and sat down under an old wall, and Jack pulled out his bread and meat, and shared with the dog, and the ass made his dinner on a bunch of thistles. While they were eating and chatting, what should come by but a poor half-starved cat, and the mole row he gave out of him would make your heart ache. You look as if you saw the tops of 9 houses since breakfast, says Jack. Here's a bone and something on it. May your child never know a hungry belly, says Tom. It's myself that's in need of your kindness. May I be so bold as to ask where ye's are all going? We're going to seek our fortune till the harvest comes in, and you may join us if you like. And that I'll do with a heart and a half, says the cat, and thank ye for asking me. Off they set again, and just as the shadows of the trees were 3 times as long as themselves, they heard a great cackling in a field inside the road, and out over the ditch jumped a fox with a fine black cock in his mouth. Oh, you anointed villain, says the ass, roaring like thunder. At him, good dog, says Jack, and the word wasn't out of his mouth when Coley was in full sweep after the red dog. Reynard dropped his prize like a hot potato and was off like a shot, and the poor cock came back fluttering and trembling to Jack and his comrades. Oh, musha, neighbours, says he, wasn't it the height of luck that you threw you in my way? Maybe I won't remember your kindness if ever I find you in hardship. And where in the world are you all going? We're going to seek our fortune till the harvest comes in, and you may join our party if you like, and sit on Neddy's crupper when your legs and wings are tired. Well, the march began again, and just as the sun was gone down, they looked around, and there was neither cabin nor farmhouse in sight. Well, well, says Jack, the worse luck now the better another time, and it's only a summer night after all. We'll go into the wood and make our bed on the long grass. No sooner said than done. Jack stretched himself on a bunch of dry grass, and the ass lay near him. The dog and cat lay in the ass's warm lap, and the cock went to roost in the next tree. Well, the soundness of deep sleep was over them all, when the cock took the notion of crowing. Bother you, black cock, says the ass, you disturb me from a nice wisp of hay as ever I tasted. What's the matter? It's daybreak, that's the matter. Don't you see the light yonder? I see a light indeed, says Jack, but it's from a candle. It's coming, and not from the sun. As you've roused us, we may as well go over and ask for lodging. So they all shook themselves, and went on through the grass, and rocks, and briars, till they got down into a hollow, and there was the light coming through the shadow. And along with it came singing, and laughing, and cursing. Easy, boys, says Jack. Walk on your tippy toes till we see what sort of people we have to deal with. So they crept near the window, and there they saw 6 robbers inside with pistols, and blunderbushes, and cutlasses, sitting at a table, eating roast beef and pork, and drinking mulled beer, and wine, and whisky punch. Wasn't that a fine haul we made at the Lord of Dunlavin's, says one ugly-looking thief with his mouth full. And it's little we'd get only for the honest porter. Here's his purty health. The porter's purty health, cried out every one of them, and Jack bent his finger at his comrades. Close your ranks, my men, says he in a whisper, and let every one mind the word of my command. So the ass put his forehoofs on the sill of the window, and the dog got on the ass's head, the cat on the dog's head, and the cock on the cat's head. Then Jack made a sign, and they all sung out like mad. Hee-haw! Hee-haw! Roared the ass. Row-row! Barked the dog. Meow-meow! Cried the cat. Cock-a-doodle-doo! Cried the cock. Level your pistols, cried Jack, and make smithereens of 'em. Don't leave a mother's son of them alive. Present! Fire! With that they gave another halloo, and smashed every pane in the window. The robbers were frightened out of their lives. They blew out the candles, threw down the table, and skelped out at the back door as if they were in earnest, and never drew rein till they were in the very heart of the wood. Jack and his party got into the room, closed the shutters, lighted the candles, and ate and drank till hunger and thirst were gone. Then they lay down to rest, Jack in the bed, the ass in the stable, the dog on the doormat, the cat by the fire, and the cock on the perch. At first the robbers were very glad to find themselves safe in the thick wood, but soon they began to get vexed. "This damp grass is very different from our warm room," says one. "I was obliged to drop a fine pig's foot," says another. "I didn't get a teaspoonful of my last tumbler," says another. "And all the Lord of Dunlavin's gold and silver that we left behind," says the last. "I think I'll venture back," says the captain, "and see if we can recover anything." "That's a good boy," said they all, and away he went. The lights were all out, and so he groped his way to the fire, and there the cat flew in his face and tore him with teeth and claws. He let a roar out of him, and made for the room door to look for a candle inside. He trod on the dog's tail, and if he did, he got the marks of his teeth in his arms, and legs, and thighs. "1,000 murders!" cried he. "I wish I was out of this unlucky house." When he got to the street door, the cock dropped down upon him with his claws and bill, and what the cat and dog done to him was only a flay bite to what he got from the cock. "Oh, tatheration to you all, you unfeeling vagabonds," says he, when he recovered his breath, and he staggered and spun round and round till he reeled into the table, back foremost, but the ass received him with a kick on the broadest part of his small clothes, and laid him comfortably on the dunghill. When he came to himself, he scratched his head, and began to think what happened to him, and as soon as he found that his legs were able to carry him, he crawled away, dragging one foot after another, till he reached the wood. "Well, well," cried them all, when he came within hearing, "any chance of our property?" "You may say chance," says he, "and it's itself is the poor chance all out. Ah, will any of you pull a bed of dry grass for me? All the sticking plaster and Enniscorthy will be too little for the cuts and bruises I have on me. Ah, if you only knew what I had gone through for you. When I got to the kitchen fire, looking for a sod of lighted turf, what should be there but an old woman carding flax? And you may see the marks she left on my face with the cards. I made to the room door as fast as I could, and who should I stumble over but a cobbler and his seat, and if he did not work at me as well with his awls and his pinchers, you may call me a rogue. Well, I got away from him somehow, but when I was passing through the door, it must be the devil himself that pounced down on me with his claws, and his teeth, that were equal to sixpenny nails, and his wings. Ill luck be in his road. Well, at last I reached the stable, and there, by way of salute, I got a pelt from a sledgehammer that sent me half a mile off. If you don't believe me, I'll give you leave to go and judge for yourselves." "Oh, my poor captain," says they, "we believe you to the nines. Catch us indeed going within a hen's race of that unlucky cabin." Well, before the sun shook his doublet next morning, Jack and his comrades were up and about. They made a hearty breakfast on what was left the night before, and then they all agreed to set off to the castle of the Lord Dunlavin, and give him back all his gold and silver. Jack put it all in the two ends of a sack, and laid it across Neddy's back, and all took the road in their hands. Away they went, through bogs, up hills, down dales, and sometimes along the yellow high road, till they came to the hall door of the Lord Dunlavin, and who should be there, airing his powdered head, his white stockings, and his red breeches, but the thief of a porter. He gave a cross look to the visitors, and says he to Jack, "What do you want here, my fine fellow? There isn't room for you all." "We want," says Jack, "what I'm sure you haven't to give us, and that is common civility." "Come, be off, you lazy strollers," says he. While a cat 'ud be licking her ear, I'd let the dogs at you." "Would you tell a body," says the cock that was perched on the ass's head, "who was it that opened the door for the robbers the other night?" Ah, maybe the porter's red face didn't turn the colour of his frill, and the Lord of Dunlavin and his pretty daughter that was standing at the parlour window, unknownst to the porter, put out their heads. "I'd be glad, Barney," says the master, "to hear your answer to the gentleman with the red comb on him." "Ah, my lord, don't believe the rascal. I'm sure I didn't open the door to the 6 robbers." "And how did you know there were 6, you poor innocent?" said the lord. "Never mind, sir," says Jack. "All your gold and silver is there in that sack, and I don't think you will begrudge us our supper and bed after our long march from the wood of Al-Salach." "Begrudge indeed! Not one of you will ever see a poor day if I can help it." So all were welcome to their heart's content, and the ass and the dog and the cock got the best posts in the farmyard, and the cat took possession of the kitchen. The Lord took Jack in his hands, dressed him from top to toe in broadcloth, and frills as white as snow, and turn pumps, and put a watch in his fob. When they sat down to dinner, the lady of the house said Jack had the air of a born gentleman about him, and the Lord said he'd make him his steward. Jack brought his mother and settled her comfortably near the castle, and all were as happy as you please. End of Chapter 14. Chapter 15 of Celtic Fairy Tales. Celtic Fairy Tales, selected and edited by Joseph Jacobs. Chapter 15. The Shi An Ganon and the Gruagach Gair. The Shi An Ganon was born in the morning, named at noon, and went in the evening to ask his daughter of the king of Erin. "I will give you my daughter in marriage," said the king of Erin. "You won't get her, though, unless you go and bring me back the tidings that I want, and tell me what it is that put a stop to the laughing of the Gruagach Gair, who before this laughed always, and laughed so loud that the whole world heard him. There are 12 iron spikes out here in the garden behind my castle. On 11 of the spikes are the heads of kings' sons who came seeking my daughter in marriage, and all of them went away to get the knowledge I wanted. Not one was able to get it, and tell me what stopped the Gruagach Gair from laughing. I took the heads off them all when they came back without the tidings for which they went, and I'm greatly in dread that your head'll be on the 12th spike, for I'll do the same to you that I did to the 11 kings' sons, unless you tell me what put a stop to the laughing of the Gruagach." The Shi An Ganon made no answer, but left the king and pushed away to know. Could he find why the Gruagach was silent? He took a glen at a step, a hill at a leap, and travelled all day till evening. Then he came to a house. The master of the house asked him what sort was he, and he said, "A young man looking for hire." "Well," said the master of the house, "I was going tomorrow to look for a man to mind my cows. If you'll work for me, you'll have a good place, the best food a man could have to eat in this world, and a soft bed to lie on." The Shi An Ganon took service, and ate his supper. Then the master of the house said, "I am the Gruagach Gair. Now that you are my man, and have eaten your supper, you'll have a bed of silk to sleep on." Next morning after breakfast, the Gruagach said to the Shi An Ganon, "Go out now, and loosen my 5 golden cows, and my bull without horns, and drive them to pasture, but when you have them out on the grass, be careful you don't let them go near the land of the giant." The new cowboy drove the cattle to pasture, and when near the land of the giant, he saw it was covered with woods, and surrounded by a high wall. He went up, put his hand against the wall, and threw in a great stretch of it. Then he went inside, and threw out another great stretch of the wall. and put the 5 golden cows and the bull without horns on the land of the giant. Then he climbed a tree, ate the sweet apples himself, and threw the sour ones down to the cattle of the Gruagach Gair. Soon a great crashing was heard in the woods, the noise of a young trees bending, and old trees breaking. The cowboy looked around and saw a 5-headed giant pushing through the trees, and soon he was before him.
"Poor miserable creature," said the giant, "but weren't you impudent to come to my land and trouble me in this way? You're too big for one bite, and too small for 2. I don't know what to do, but tear you to pieces."
"You nasty brute," said the boy, coming down to him from the tree. "'Tis little I care for you." And then they went at each other. So great was the noise between them that there was nothing in the world but what was looking on and listening to the combat. They fought till late in the afternoon, when the giant was getting the upper hand, and then the cowboy thought that if the giant should kill him, his father and mother would never find him or set eyes on him again, and he would never get the daughter of the king of Erin. The heart in this body grew strong at this thought. He sprang on the giant, and with the first squeeze and thrust he put him to his knees on the hard ground, with the second thrust to his waist, and with the third to his shoulders. "I have you at last! You're done for now," said the cowboy. Then he took out his knife, cut the 5 heads off the giant, and when he had them off, he cut out the tongues and threw the heads over the wall. Then he put the tongues in his pocket and drove home the cattle. That evening the Gruagach couldn't find 5 vessels enough in all his place to hold the milk of the 5 golden cows. But when the cowboy was on the way home with the cattle, the son of the king of Tizian came and took the giant's heads, and claimed the princess in marriage, when the Gruagach Gair should laugh. After supper the cowboy would give no talk to his master, but kept his mind to himself, and went to the bed of silk to sleep. On the morning the cowboy rose before his master, and the first words he said to the Gruagach were, "What keeps you from laughing? You who used to laugh so loud that the whole world heard you." "I'm sorry," said the Gruagach, "that the daughter of the king of Erin sent you here." "If you don't tell me of your own will, I'll make you tell me," said the cowboy, and he put a face on himself that was terrible to look at, and running through the house like a madman, could find nothing that would give pain enough to the Gruagach but some ropes made of untanned sheepskin hanging on the wall. He took these down, caught the Gruagach, fastened him by the 3 smalls, and tied him so that his little toes were whispering to his ears. When he was in this state the Gruagach said, "I'll tell you what stopped my laughing if you set me free." So the cowboy unbound him, and the 2 sat down together, and the Gruagach said, "I lived in this castle, here with my 12 sons. We ate, drank, played cards, and enjoyed ourselves, till one day, when my sons and I were playing, a slender brown hare came rushing in, jumped onto the hearth, tossed up the ashes to the rafters, and ran away. On another day he came again, but if he did, we were ready for him, my 12 sons and myself. As soon as he tossed up the ashes and ran off, we made after him, and followed him till nightfall, when he went into a glen. We saw a light before us. I ran on, and came to a house with a great apartment, where there was a man named Yellowface with 12 daughters, and the hare was tied to the side of the room near the woman. There was a large pot over the fire in the room, and a great stork boiling in the pot. The man of the house said to me, "There are bundles of rushes at the end of the room. Go there and sit down with your men." He went into the next room and brought out 2 pikes, one of wood, the other of iron, and asked me which of the pikes would I take. I said, "I'll take the iron one," for I thought in my heart that if an attack should come on me, I could defend myself better with the iron than the wooden pike. Yellowface gave me the iron pike, and the first chance of taking what I could out of the pot on the point of the pike. I got but a small piece of the stalk, and the man of the house took all the rest on his wooden pike. We had to fast that night, and when the man and his 12 daughters ate the flesh of the stalk, they hurled the bare bones in the faces of my sons and myself. We had to stop all night in that way, beaten on the faces by the bones of the stalk. Next morning, when we were going away, the man of the house asked me to stay a while, and going into the next room, he brought out 12 loops of iron and one of wood, and said to me, "Put the heads of your 12 sons into the iron loops, or your own head into the wooden one." And I said, "I'll put the 12 heads of my sons in the iron loops, and keep my own out of the wooden one." He put the iron loops on the necks of my 12 sons, and put the wooden one on his own neck. Then he snapped the loops one after the other, till he took the heads off my 12 sons, and threw the heads and bodies out of the house. But he did nothing to hurt his own neck. When he had killed my sons, he took hold of me, and stripped the skin and flesh from the small of my back down. And when he had done that, he took the skin of a black sheep that had been hanging on the wall for 7 years, and clapped it on my body in place of my own flesh and skin, and the sheepskin grew on me. And every year since then I shear myself, and every bit of wool I use for the stockings that I wear, I clip off my own back. When he had said this, the Gruagach showed the cowboy his back covered with thick black wool. After what he had seen and heard, the cowboy said, "I know now why you don't laugh, and small blame to you, but what does that hare come here, Stool?" "He does indeed," said the Gruagach. Both went to the table to play, and they were not long playing cards, when the hare ran in, and before they could stop him, he was out again. But the cowboy made after the hare, and the Gruagach after the cowboy, and they ran as fast as ever their legs could carry them, till nightfall. And when the hare was entering the castle where the 12 sons of the Gruagach were killed, the cowboy caught him by the 2 hind legs, and dashed out his brains against the wall, and the skull of the hare was knocked into the chief room of the castle, and fell at the feet of the master of the place. "Who has dared to interfere with my fighting pet?" screamed Yellowface. "I," said the cowboy, "and if your pet had had manners, he might be alive now." The cowboy and the Gruagach stood by the fire. A stork was boiling in the pot, as when the Gruagach came the first time. The master of the house went into the next room, and brought out an iron and a wooden pike, and asked the cowboy which would he choose. "I'll take the wooden one," said the cowboy, "and you may keep the iron one for yourself." So he took the wooden one, and going to the pot, brought out on the pike all the stalk except a small bite, and he and the Gruagach fell to eating, and they were eating the flesh of the stalk all night. The cowboy and the Gruagach were at home in the place that time. In the morning the master of the house went into the next room, took down 12 iron loops with the wooden one, brought them out, and asked the cowboy which would he take, the 12 iron or the wooden loop. "What could I do with the 12 iron ones, for myself or my master? I'll take the wooden one." He put it on, and taking the 12 iron loops, put them on the necks of the 12 daughters of the house, then snapped the 12 heads off them, and turning to their father said, "I'll do the same thing to you unless you bring the 12 sons of my master to life, and make them as well and strong as when you took their heads." The master of the house went out, and brought the 12 to life again, and when the Gruagach saw all his sons alive as well as ever, he let a laugh out of himself, and all the eastern world heard the laugh. Then the cowboy said to the Gruagach, "It's a bad thing you have done to me, for the daughter of the king of Erin will be married the day after your laugh is heard." "Oh, then we must be there in time," said the Gruagach, and they all made away from the place as fast as ever they could, the cowboy, the Gruagach, and his 12 sons. They hurried on, and when within 3 miles of the king's castle, there was such a throng of people that no one could go a step ahead. "We must clear a road through this," said the cowboy. "We must indeed," said the Gruagach, and at it they went, through the people, some on one side and some on the other, and soon they had an opening for themselves to the king's castle. As they went in, the daughter of the king of Erin and the son of the king of Tizian were on their knees just going to be married. The cowboy drew his hand on the bridegroom, and gave a blow that sent him spinning till he stopped under a table at the other side of the room. "What scoundrel struck that blow?" asked the king of Erin. "It was I," said the cowboy. "What reason had you to strike the man who won my daughter?" "It was I who won your daughter, not he, and if you don't believe me, the Gruagach Gaire is here himself. He'll tell you the whole story from beginning to end, and show you the tongues of the giant." So the Gruagach came up and told the king the whole story, how the Shian Ganon had become his cowboy, had guarded the 5 golden cows and the bull without horns, cut off the heads of the 5-headed giant, killed the wizard hare, and brought his own 12 sons to life. "And then," said the Gruagach, "he is the only man in the whole world I have ever told why I stopped laughing, and the only one who has ever seen my fleece of wool." When the king of Erin heard what the Gruagach said, and saw the tongues of the giant fitted in the head, he made the Shian Ganon kneel down by his daughter, and they were married on the spot. Then the son of the king of Tizian was thrown into prison, and the next day they put down a great fire, and the deceiver was burned to ashes. The wedding lasted 9 days, and the last day was better than the first. End of chapter 15. Celtic Fairy Tales, selected and edited by Joseph Jacobs. Chapter 16. The Storyteller at Fault. At the time when the Tuatha De Danann held the sovereignty of Ireland, there reigned in Leinster a king who was remarkably fond of hearing stories. Like the other princes and chieftains of the island, he had a favourite storyteller, who held a large estate from his majesty, on condition of telling him a new story every night of his life before he went to sleep. Many indeed were the stories he knew, so that he had already reached a good old age without failing even for a single night in his task. And such was the skill he displayed that whatever cares of state or other annoyances might prey upon the monarch's mind, his storyteller was sure to send him to sleep. One morning the storyteller arose early, and as his custom was, strolled out into his garden, turning over in his mind incidents which he might weave into a story for the king at night. But this morning he found himself quite at fault. After pacing his whole demesne, he returned to his house, without being able to think of anything new or strange. He found no difficulty in "there was once a king who had 3 sons," or "one day the king of all Ireland," but further than that he could not get. At length he went in to breakfast, and found his wife much perplexed at his delay. "Why don't you come to breakfast, my dear?" said she. "I have no mind to eat anything," replied the storyteller. "Long as I have been in the service of the King of Leinster, I never sat down to breakfast without having a new story ready for the evening. But this morning my mind is quite shut up, and I don't know what to do. I might as well lie down and die at once. I'll be disgraced forever this evening, when the king calls for his storyteller." Just at this moment the lady looked out of the window. "Do you see that black thing at the end of the field?" said she. "I do," replied her husband. They drew nigh, and saw a miserable-looking old man lying on the ground, with a wooden leg placed beside him. "Who are you, my good man?" asked the storyteller. "Oh, then, 'tis little matter who I am. I'm a poor old lame, decrepit, miserable creature, sitting down here to rest a while."
"And what are you doing with that box and dice I see in your hand?"
"I'm waiting here to see if anyone will play a game with me," replied the beggar man.
"Play with you? Why, what has a poor old man like you to play for?"
"I have 100 pieces of gold in this leathern purse," replied the old man.
"You may as well play with him," said the storyteller's wife, "and perhaps you'll have something to tell the king in the evening." A smooth stone was placed between them, and upon it they cast their throws. It was but a little while, and the storyteller lost every penny of his money. "Much good may it do you, friend," said he. "What better hap could I look for, fool that I am?"
"Will you play again?" asked the old man.
"Don't be talking, man. You have all my money."
"Haven't you chariot and horses and hounds?"
"Well, what of them?"
"I'll stake all my money I have against thine."
"Nonsense, man. Do you think for all the money in Ireland I'd run the risk of seeing my lady tramp home on foot?"
"Maybe you'd win," said the boggach.
"Maybe I wouldn't," said the storyteller.
"Play with him, husband," said the wife. "I don't mind walking if you do, love."
"I never refused you before," said the storyteller, "and I won't do so now." Down he sat again, and in one throw lost houses, hounds, and chariot.
"Will you play again?" asked the beggar.
"Are you making game of me, man? What else have I to stake?"
"I'll stake all my winnings against your wife," said the old man.
The storyteller turned away in silence, but his wife stopped him.
"Accept his offer," said she. "This is the 3rd time, and who knows what luck you may have. You'll surely win now."
They played again, and the storyteller lost. No sooner had he done so, than, to his sorrow and surprise, his wife went and sat down near the ugly old beggar. "Is that the way you're leaving me?" said the storyteller.
"Sure I was won," said she. "You would not cheat the poor man, would you?" "Have you any more to stake?" asked the old man.
"You know very well I have not," replied the storyteller.
"I'll stake the whole now, wife and all, against your own self," said the old man.
Again they played, and again the storyteller lost. "Well, here I am, and what do you want with me?"
"I'll soon let you know," said the old man,
and he took from his pocket a long cord and a wand.
"Now," said he to the storyteller, "what kind of animal would you rather be? A deer, a fox, or a hare? You have your choice now, but you may not have it later."
To make a long story short, the storyteller made his choice of a hare. The old man threw the cord around him, and struck him with the wand, and lo, a long-eared, frisking hare was skipping and jumping on the green. But it wasn't for long. Who but his wife called the hounds, and set them on him. The hare fled, the dogs followed. Round the field ran a high wall, so that run as he might he couldn't get out, and mightily diverted were beggar and lady to see him twist and double. In vain did he take refuge with his wife. She kicked him back again to the hounds, until at length the beggar stopped the hounds, and with a stroke of the wand, panting and breathless, the storyteller stood before them again.
"And how did you like the sport?" asked the beggar.
"It might be sport to others," replied the storyteller, looking at his wife. "For my part, I could well put up with the loss of it. Would it be asking too much," he went on to the beggar, "to know who you are at all, or where you come from, or why you take a pleasure in plaguing a poor old man like me?"
"Oh," replied the stranger, "I'm an odd kind of good-for-little fellow, one day poor, another day rich. But if you wish to know more about me or my habits, come with me, and perhaps I may show you more than you would make out if you went alone."
"I am not my own master to go or stay," replied the storyteller with a sigh.
The stranger put out one hand into his wallet, and drew out of it, before their eyes, a well-looking middle-aged man, to whom he spoke as follows. "By all you heard and saw since I put you in my wallet, take charge of this lady and of the carriage and horses, and have them ready for me whenever I want them." Scarcely had he said these words when all vanished, and the storyteller found himself at the Fox's Ford, near the castle of Red Hugh O'Donnell. He could see all, but none could see him. O'Donnell was in his hall, and heaviness of flesh and weariness of spirit were upon him. "Go out," he said to his doorkeeper, "and see who or what may be coming." The doorkeeper went, and what he saw was a lank, grey beggarman, half his sword bared behind his haunch, his 2 shoes full of cold road-awayish water sousing about him, the tips of his 2 ears out through his old hat, his 2 shoulders out through his scant-tattered cloak, and in his hand a green wand of holly. "Save you, O'Donnell," said the lank grey beggarman. "And you likewise," said O'Donnell. "Whence come you, and what is your craft?" "I come from the outmost stream of earth, from the glens where the white swans glide, a night in Islay, a night in Man, a night on the cold hillside." "It's a great traveller you are," said O'Donnell. "Maybe you've learned something on the road." "I am a juggler," said the lank grey beggarman, "and for 5 pieces of silver you shall see a trick of mine." "You shall have them," said O'Donnell, and the lank grey beggarman took 3 small straws and placed them in his hand. "The middle one," said he, "I'll blow away, the other 2 I'll leave." "Thou canst not do it," said one and all. But the lank grey beggarman put a finger on either side, outside the straw, and whiff! Away he blew the middle one. "'Tis a good trick," said O'Donnell, and he paid him his 5 pieces of silver. "For half the money," said one of the chief's lads, "I'll do the same trick." "Take him at his word, O'Donnell." The lad put the 3 straws on his hand, and a finger on either outside straw, and he blew. And what happened but that the fist was blown away with the straw? "Thou art sore, and thou wilt be sorer," said O'Donnell. "6 more pieces, O'Donnell, and I'll do another trick for thee," said the lank grey beggarman. "6 shalt thou have." "Seest thou my 2 ears? One I'll move, but not t'other." "'Tis easy to see them, but they're big enough. Thou canst never move 1 ear, and not the 2 together." The lank grey beggarman put his hand to his ear, and he gave it a pull. O'Donnell laughed, and paid him the 6 pieces. "Call that a trick?" said the fistless lad. "Any one can do that." And so saying, he put up his hand, pulled his ear, and what happened was that he pulled away ear and head. "Thou sore thou art, and sorer thou'lt be," said O'Donnell. "Well, O'Donnell," said the lank grey beggarman, "strange are the tricks I've shown thee, but I'll show thee a stranger one yet for the same money." "Thou hast my word for it," said O'Donnell. With that, the lank grey beggarman took a bag from under his armpit, and from out the bag a ball of silk, and he unwound the ball, and he flung it swantwise up into the clear blue heavens, and it became a ladder. Then he took a hare, and placed it upon the thread, and up it ran. Again he took out a red-eared hound, and it swiftly ran up after the hare. "Now," said the lank grey beggarman, "has any one a mind to run after the dog, and on the course?" "I will," said a lad of O'Donnell's. "Up with you then," said the juggler, "but I warn you, if you let my hare be killed, I'll cut off your head when you come down." The lad ran up the thread, and all 3 soon disappeared. After looking for a long time, the lank grey beggarman said, "I'm afraid the hound is eating the hare, and that our friend has fallen asleep." Saying this, he began to wind the thread. Down came the lad, fast asleep, and down came the red-eared hound, and in his mouth the last morsel of the hare. He struck the lad a stroke with the edge of his sword, and so cast his head off. As for the hound, if he used it no worse, he used it no better. "It's little I'm pleased, and sore I'm angered," said O'Donnell,
that a hound and a lad should be killed at my court."
"5 pieces of silver twice over for each of them," said the juggler, "and the head shall be on them as before."
"Thou shalt get that."
5 pieces, and again 5 were paid him, and lo! the lad has his head, and the hound his. And though they lived to the uttermost end of time, the hound would never touch a hair again, and the lad took good care to keep his eyes open. Scarcely had the lank grey beggarman done this when he vanished from out of their sight, and no one present could say if he had flown through the air, or if the earth had swallowed him up. He moved as wave tumbling o'er wave, as whirlwind following whirlwind, as a furious wintry blast, so swiftly, sprucely, cheerily, right proudly, and no stop made, until he came to the court of Leinster's king. He gave a cheery light leap o'er top of turret, of court and city, of Leinster's king. Heavy was the flesh, and weary the spirit of Leinster's king. 'Twas the hour he was wont to hear a story, but send he might right and left, not a jot of tidings about the storyteller could he get.
"Go to the door," said he to his doorkeeper, "and see if a soul is in sight who may tell me something about my storyteller."
The doorkeeper went, and what he saw was a lank grey beggarman, half his sword bared behind his haunch, his 2 old shoes full of cold road-awayish water sousing about him, the tips of his 2 ears out through his old hat, his 2 shoulders out through his scant tattered cloak, and in his hand a 3-stringed harp.
"What canst thou do?"
said the doorkeeper. "I can play," said the lank grey beggarman. "Never fear," added he to the storyteller, "thou shalt see all, and not a man shall see thee." When the king heard a harper was outside, he bade him in.
"It is I that have the best harpers in the 5/5 of Ireland," said he, and he signed them to play.
They did so, and if they played, the lank grey beggarman listened.
"Heardst thou ever the like?" said the king.
"Did you ever, O king, hear a cat purring over a bowl of broth, or the buzzing of beetles in the twilight, or a shrill-tongued old woman scolding your head off?"
"That I have often," said the king.
"More melodious to me," said the lank grey beggarman, "were the worst of these sounds than the sweetest harping of thy harpers."
When the harpers heard this, they drew their swords and rushed at him. But instead of striking him, their blows fell on each other, and soon not a man but was cracking his neighbour's skull, and getting his own cracked in turn. When the king saw this, he thought it hard the harpers weren't content with murdering their music, but must needs murder each other. "Hang the fellow who began it all," said he, "and if I can't have a story, let me have peace."
Up came the guards, seized the lank grey beggarman, marched him to the gallows, and hanged him high and dry. Back they marched to the hall. But who should they see but the lank grey beggarman, seated on a bench with his mouth to a flagon of ale. "Never welcome you in!" cried the captain of the guard. "Didn't we hang you this minute? What brings you here?" "It is me myself, you mean?" "Who else?" said the captain. "May your hand turn into a pig's foot with you when you think of tying the rope. Why should you speak of hanging me?" Back they scurried to the gallows, and there hung the king's favourite brother. Back they hurried to the king, who had fallen fast asleep. "Please, your majesty," said the captain, "we hanged that strolling vagabond, but here he is back again as well as ever." "Hang him again," said the king, and off he went to sleep once more. They did as they were told, but what happened was that they found the king's chief harper hanging where the lank grey beggarman should have been. The captain of the guard was sorely puzzled. "Are you wishing to hang me a 3rd time?" said the lank grey beggarman. "Go where you will," said the captain, "and as fast as you please if you'll only go far enough. It's trouble enough you've given us already." "Now, be reasonable," said the beggarman, "and since you've given up trying to hang a stranger because he finds fault with your music, I don't mind telling you that if you go back to the gallows, you'll find your friend sitting on the sward, none the worse for what has happened." As he said these words, he vanished, and the storyteller found himself on the spot where they first met, and where his wife still was with the carriage and horses. "Now," said the lank grey beggarman, "I'll torment you no longer. There's your carriage and your horses and your money and your wife. Do what you please with them." "For my carriage and my houses and my hounds," said the storyteller, "I thank you, but my wife and my money you may keep." "No," said the other, "I want neither. And as for your wife, don't think ill of her for what she did. She couldn't help it." "Not help it? Not help kicking me into the mouth of my own hounds? Not help casting me off for the sake of a beggarly old—" "I'm not as beggarly or as old as ye think. I am Angus of the Bruff. Many a good turn you've done me with the King of Leinster. This morning my magic told me the difficulty you were in, and I made up my mind to get you out of it. As for your wife there, the power that changed your body changed her mind. Forget and forgive as man and wife should do. And now you have a story for the King of Leinster when he calls for one." And with that he disappeared. It's true enough. He now had a story fit for a king. From first to last he told all that had befallen him. So long and loud laughed the king that he couldn't go to sleep at all, and he told the storyteller never to trouble for fresh stories, but every night as long as he lived he listened again, and he laughed afresh at the tale of the lank grey beggarman. End of chapter 16.
Chapter 17 of Celtic Fairy Tales. Celtic Fairy Tales, selected and edited by Joseph Jacobs. Chapter 17. The Sea Maiden. There was once a poor old fisherman, and one year he was not getting much fish. On a day of days, while he was fishing, there rose a sea maiden at the side of his boat, and she asked him, "Are you getting much fish?" The old man answered and said, "Not I." "What reward would you give me for sending plenty of fish to you?" "Ah," said the old man, "I have not much to spare." "Will you give me the first son you have?" said she. "I would give you that, were I to have a son," said he. "Then go home, and remember me when your son is 20 years of age, and you yourself will get plenty of fish after this." Everything happened as the sea maiden said, and he himself got plenty of fish. But when the end of the 20 years was nearing, the old man was growing more and more sorrowful and heavy-hearted, while he counted each day as it came. He had rest neither day nor night. The son asked his father one day, "Is anyone troubling you?" The old man said, "Someone is, but that's naught to do with you nor anyone else." The lad said, "I must know what it is." His father told him at last how the matter was with him and the sea maiden. "Let not that put you in any trouble," said the son. "I will not oppose you." You shall not go, my son, though I never get fish any more. If you will not let me go with you, go to the smithy, and let the smith make me a great strong sword, and I will go seek my fortune." His father went to the smithy, and the smith made a doughty sword for him. His father came home with the sword. The lad grasped it, and gave it a shake or two, and it flew into 100 splinters. He asked his father to go to the smithy and get him another sword, in which there should be twice as much weight. And so his father did, and so likewise it happened to his next sword. It broke in 2 halves. Back went the old man to the smithy, and the smith made a great sword, its like he never made before. "There's thy sword for thee," said the smith, "and the fist must be good that blazeth this blade." The old man gave the sword to his son. He gave it a shake or two. "This will do," said he. "It's high time now to travel on my way." On the next morning he put a saddle on a black horse, that his father had, and he took the world for his pillow. When he went on a bit, he fell in with a carcass of a sheep beside the road, and there were a great black dog, a falcon and an otter, and they were quarrelling over the spoil, so they asked him to divide it for them. He came down off the horse, and he divided the carcass amongst the three. 3 shares to the dog, 2 shares to the otter, and a share to the falcon. For this, said the dog, if swiftness of foot or sharpness of tooth will give thee aid, mind me, and I will be at thy side. Said the otter, if the swimming of foot on the ground of a pool will lose thee, mind me, and I will be at thy side. Said the falcon, if hardships comes on thee where swiftness of wing or crook of a claw will do good, mind me, and I will be at thy side. On this he went onward, till he reached a king's house, and he took service to be a herd, and his wages were to be according to the milk of the cattle. He went away with the cattle, and the grazing was but bare. In the evening, when he took them home, they had not much milk, the place was so bare, and his meat and drink was but spare that night. On the next day he went on further with them, and at last he came to a place exceedingly grassy, in a green glen of which he never saw the like. But about the time when he should drive the cattle homewards, who should he see coming but a great giant with his sword in his hand. Hi-ho, Hagrach, says the giant, those cattle are mine. They are on my land, and a dead man art thou. I say not that, says the herd. There is no knowing, but that may be easier to say than to do. He drew the great clean sweeping sword, and he neared the giant. The herd drew back his sword, and the head was off the giant in a twinkling. He leapt on the black horse, and he went to look for the giant's house. In went the herd, and that's the place where there was money in plenty, and dresses of each kind in the wardrobe, with gold and silver, and each thing finer than the other. At the mouth of night he took himself to the king's house, but he took not a thing from the giant's house. And when the cattle were milked, this night there was milk. He got good feeding this night, meat and drink without stint, and the king was hugely pleased that he had caught such a herd. He went on for a time in this way, but at last the glen grew bare of grass, and the grazing was not so good. So he thought he would go a little further forward in on the giant's land, and he seed a great park of grass. He returned for the cattle, and he put them into the park. There were but a short time grazing in the park, when a great wild giant came full of rage and madness. Hi-ho, Hogger, said the giant, it is a drink of thy blood that will quench my thirst this night. There is no knowing, said the herd, but that's easier to say than to do. And at each other went the men. There was shaking of blades. At length and at last it seemed as if the giant would get the victory over the herd. Then he called on the dog, and with one spring the black dog caught the giant by the neck, and swiftly the herd struck off his head. He went home very tired this night, but it's a wonder if the king's cattle had not milk. The whole family was delighted that they had got such a herd. Next day he betakes himself to the castle. When he reached the door, a little fluttering carlin met him standing in the door. All hail and good luck to thee, fisher's son. 'Tis I myself am pleased to see thee. Great is the honour for this kingdom, for thy like to be come into it. Thy coming in is fame for this little body. Go in first, honour to the gentles. Go on and take breath. In before me, thou crone. I like not flattery out of doors. Go in and let's hear thy speech." In went the crone, and when her back was to him, he drew his sword and whips her head off. But the sword flew out of his hand, and swift the crone gripped her head with both hands, and put it on her neck as it was before. The dog sprung on the crone, and she struck the generous dog with a club of magic, and there he lay. But the herd struggled for a hold of the club of magic, and with one blow on the top of the head she was on earth in the twinkling of an eye. He went forward, up a little, and there was spoil, gold and silver, and each thing more precious than another, in the crone's castle. He went back to the king's house, and then there was rejoicing. He followed herding in this way for a time, but one night, after he came home, instead of getting all hail and good luck from the dairymaid, all were at crying and woe. He asked what cause of woe there was that night. The dairymaid said, "There is a great beast with 3 heads in the loch, and it must get someone every year, and the lot had come this year on the king's daughter, and at midday tomorrow she is to meet the ladled beast at the upper end of the loch, but there is a great suitor yonder who is going to rescue her." "What suitor is that?" said the herd. "Oh, he's a great general of arms," said the dairymaid, "and when he kills the beast, you will marry the king's daughter. For the king has said that he who could save his daughter should get her to marry." But on the morrow, when the time grew near, the king's daughter and this hero of arms went to give a meeting to the beast, and they reached the black rock at the upper end of the loch. They were but a short time there when the beast stirred in the midst of the loch. But when the general saw this terror of a beast with 3 heads, he took fright, and he slunk away, and he hid himself. And the king's daughter was under fear and under trembling, with no one at all to save her. Suddenly she sees a doughty handsome youth riding on a black horse, and coming where she was. He was marvellously arrayed and full armed, and his black dog moved after him. "There is gloom on your face, girl," said the youth. "What do you here?" "Oh, that's no matter," said the king's daughter. "It's not long I'll be here, at all events." "I say not that," said he. "A champion fled as likely as you, and not long since," said she. "He is a champion who stands the war," said the youth, and to meet the beast he went with his sword and his dog. But there was a spluttering and a splashing between himself and the beast. The dog kept doing all he might, and the king's daughter was palsied by fear of the noise of the beast. One of them would now be under, and now above. But at last he cut one of the heads off it. It gave one roar, and the son of earth's echo of the rocks called to its screech, and it drove the log in spindrift from end to end, and in a twinkling it went out of sight. "Good luck and victory follow you, lad," said the king's daughter. "I am safe for one night, but the beast will come again and again, until the other 2 heads come off it." He caught the beast's head, and he drew a knot through it, and he told her to bring it with her there tomorrow. She gave him a gold ring, and went home with the head on her shoulder, and the herd betook himself to the cows. But she had not gone far when this great general saw her, and he said to her, "I will kill you if you do not say that 'twas I took the head of the beast." "Oh," says she, "'tis I will say it. Who else took the head of the beast but you?" They reached the king's house, and the head was on the general's shoulder. But here was rejoicing, that she should come home alive and whole, and this great captain with the beast's head full of blood in his hand. On the morrow they went away, and there was no question at all but that this hero would save the king's daughter. They reached the same place, and they were not long there, when the fearful ladle beast stirred in the midst of the log, and the hero slunk away as he did on yesterday. But it was not long after this when the man of the black horse came with another dress on. No matter, she knew that it was the very same lad. "It is I am pleased to see you," said she. "I am in hopes you will handle your great sword today as you did yesterday. Come up and take breath." But they were not long there when they saw the beast steaming in the midst of the loch. At once he went to meet the beast, but there was Klubberstich and Klapperstich, spluttering, splashing, raving and roaring on the beast. They kept at it thus for a long time, and about the mouth of night he cut another head of the beast. He put it on the knot and gave it to her. She gave him one of her earrings, and he leapt on the black horse, and he betook himself to the herding. The king's daughter went home with the heads. The general met her, and took the heads from her, and he said to her that she must tell that it was he who took the head of the beast this time also. "Who else took the head of the beast but you?" said she. They reached the king's house with the heads. Then there was joy and gladness. About the same time on the morrow, the two went away. The officer hid himself as he usually did. The king's daughter betook herself to the bank of the loch. The hero of the black horse came, and if roaring and raving were on the beast on the days that were past, this day it was horrible. But no matter. He took the third head of the beast, and drew it through the knot, and gave it to her. She gave him her other earring, and then she went home with the heads. When they reached the king's house, all were full of smiles, and the general was to marry the king's daughter the next day. The wedding was going on, and every one about the castle longing till the priest should come. But when the priest came, she would marry only the one who could take the heads off the knot without cutting it. "Who should take the heads off the knot but the man that put the heads on?" said the king. The general tried them, but he could not loosen them, and at last there was no one else about the house that would try to take the heads off the knot. They said that the herd had not tried them yet. Word went for the herd, and he was not long throwing them hither and thither. "But stop a bit, my lad," said the king's daughter. "The man that took the head of the beast, he has my ring and my 2 earrings." The herd put his hand in his pocket, and he threw them on the board. "Thou art my man," said the king's daughter. The king was not so pleased when he saw that it was a herd who was to marry his daughter, but he ordered that he should be put in a better dress. But his daughter spoke, and she said that he had a dress as fine as any that ever was in his castle, and thus it happened. The herd put on the giant's golden dress, and they married that same day. They were now married, and everything went on well. But one day, and it was the namesake of the day when his father had promised him to the sea maiden, they were sauntering by the side of the loch, and lo and behold, she came and took him away to the loch without leave or asking. The king's daughter was now mournful, tearful, blind, sorrowful for her married man. She was always with her eye on the loch. An old soothsayer met her, and she told how it had befallen her married maid. Then he told her the thing to do to save her maid, and that she did. She took her harp to the seashore, and sat and played, and the sea maiden came up to listen, for sea maidens are fonder of music than all other creatures. But when the wife saw the sea maiden, she stopped. The sea maiden said, "Play on," but the princess said, "No, not till I see my man again." So the sea maiden put up his head out of the loch. Then the princess played again, and stopped till the sea maiden put him up to the waist. Then the princess played and stopped again, and this time the sea maiden put him all out of the loch, and he called on the falcon and became one and flew on shore. But the sea maiden took the princess, his wife. Sorrowful was each one that was in the town on this night. Her man was mournful, tearful, wandering down and up above the banks of the loch by day and night. The old soothsayer met him. The soothsayer told him that there was no way of killing the sea maiden but the one way, and this is it. In the island that is in the midst of the loch is a white-footed hind of the slenderest legs and the swiftest step, and though she be caught, there will spring a hoodie out of her, and though the hoodie should be caught, there will spring a trout out of her, but there is an egg in the mouth of the trout, and the soul of the sea maiden is in the egg, and if the egg breaks, she is dead. Now, there was no way of getting to this island, for the sea maiden would sink each boat and raft that would go on the loch. He thought he would try to leap the strait with the black horse, and even so he did. The black horse leapt the strait. He saw the hind, and he led the black dog after her. But when he was on one side of the island, the hind would be on the other side. Oh, would the black dog of the carcass of flesh were here! No sooner spoke he the word, than the grateful dog was at his side, and after the hind he went, and they were not long in bringing her to earth, but he no sooner caught her than a hoodie sprang out of her. Would that a falcon grey of sharpest eye and swiftest wing were here! No sooner said he this, than the falcon was after the hoodie, and she was not long putting her to earth. And as the hoodie fell on the bank of the loch, out of her jumps the trout. Oh, that thou wert by me now, O otter! No sooner said than the otter was at his side, and out on the log she leapt, and brings the trout from the midst of the log. But no sooner was the otter on shore with the trout, than the egg came from his mouth. He sprang, and he put his foot on it. Just then the sea maiden appeared, and she said, "Break off the egg, and you shall get all you ask. Deliver me to my wife." In the wink of an eye she was by his side. When he got hold of her hand in both his hands, he let his foot down on the egg, and the sea maiden died. End of chapter 17.
Chapter 18. Celtic Fairy Tales. Celtic Fairy Tales by Joseph Jacobs. Chapter 18.
A Legend of Knockmany. What Irish man, woman, or child has not heard of our renowned Hibernian Hercules, the great and glorious Finn McCool? Not one from Cape Clear to the Giant's Causeway, nor from that back again to Cape Clear. And, by the way, speaking of the Giant's Causeway brings me at once to the beginning of my story. Well, it so happened that Finn and his men were all working at the causeway in order to make a bridge across to Scotland, when Finn, who was very fond of his wife Una, took it into his head that he would go home and see how the poor woman got on in his absence. So, accordingly, he pulled up a fir tree, and after lopping off the roots and branches, made a walking stick of it, and set out on his way to Una. Una, or rather Finn, lived at this time on the very tip-top of Knockmany Hill, which faces a cousin of its own called Cullamore, that rises up, half hill, half mountain, on the opposite side. There was at this time another giant, called Cuchulainn. Some say he was Irish, and some say he was Scottish, but whether Scottish or Irish, sorrow doubt of it, but he was a targer. No other giant of the day could stand before him, and such was his strength that, when well vexed, he could give a stamp that shook the country about him. The fame and name of him went far and near, and nothing in the shape of a man, it was said, had any chance with him in a fight. By one blow of his fists he flattened a thunderbolt and kept it in his pocket, in the shape of a pancake, to show to all his enemies when they were about to fight him. Undoubtedly, he had given every giant in Ireland a considerable beating, barring Finn McCool himself, and he swore that he would never rest night or day, winter or summer, till he would serve Finn with the same sauce if he could catch him. However, the short and long of it was, with reverence be it spoken, that Finn heard Cuchulainn was coming to the causeway to have a trial of strength with him, and he was seized with a very warm and sudden fit of affection for his wife, poor woman, leading a very lonely, uncomfortable life of it in his absence. He accordingly pulled up the fir tree, as I said before, and having snedded it into a walking stick, set out on his travels to see his darling Una on the top of Knockmany by the way. In truth, the people wondered very much why it was that Finn selected such a windy spot for his dwelling-house, and they even went so far as to tell him as much. "What can you mane, Mr. McCool," said they, "by pitching your tent upon the top of Knockmany, where you are never without a breeze day or night, winter or summer, and where you're often forced to take your nightcap without either going to bed or turning up your little finger? Aye, and where besides this there's the sorrow's own want of water." "Why," said Finn, "ever since I was the height of a round tower, I was known to be fond of having a good prospect of my own, and where the dickens, neighbours, could I find a better spot for a good prospect than the top of Knockmany? As for water, I am sinking a pump, and please goodness, as soon as the causeway's made, I intend to finish it." Now this was more of Finn's philosophy, for the real state of the case was that he pitched upon the top of Knockmany in order that he might be able to see Cuchulainn coming towards the house. All we have to say is that if he wanted a spot from which to keep a sharp lookout, and between ourselves he did want it grievously, barring Slieve Croob or Slieve Donard, or its own cousin Cullamore, he could not find a neater or more convenient situation for it in the sweet and sagacious province of Ulster. "God save all here," said Finn good-humouredly, on putting his honest face into his own door. "Musha Finna Vic, and you're welcome home to your own Una, you darlin' bully." Here followed a smack that is said to have made the waters of the lake at the bottom of the hill curl, as it were, with kindness and sympathy. Finn spent 2 or 3 happy days with Una, and felt himself very comfortable, considering the dread he had of Cuchulainn. This, however, grew upon him so much that his wife could not but perceive something lay on his mind which he kept altogether to himself. Let a woman alone in the meantime for ferreting or wheedling a secret out of her good man when she wishes. Finn was a proof of this. "It's this Cuchulainn," said he, "that's troubling me. When a fellow gets angry and begins to stamp, he'll shake you a whole townland, and it's well known that he can stop a thunderbolt, for he always carries one about him in the shape of a pancake to show to anyone that might misdoubt it." As he spoke, he clapped his thumb in his mouth, which he always did when he wanted to prophesy or to know anything that happened in his absence, and the wife asked him what he did it for. "He's coming," said Finn. "I see him below Dungannon." "Thank goodness, dear, and who is it, Vic? Glory be to God." "That baste Cuchulainn," replied Finn, "and how to manage I don't know. If I run away I am disgraced, and I know that sooner or later I must meet him, for my thumb tells me so." "When will he be here?" said she. "Tomorrow, about 2 o'clock," replied Finn with a groan. "Well, my bully, don't be cast down," said Una. "Depend on me, and maybe I'll bring you better out of this scrape than ever you could bring yourself by your rule of thumb." She then made a high smoke on the top of the hill, after which she put her finger in her mouth and gave 3 whistles, and by that Cuchulainn knew he was invited to Cullamore, for this was the way that the Irish long ago gave a sign to all strangers and travellers to let them know they were welcome to come and take share of whatever was going. In the meantime, Finn was very melancholy, and did not know what to do or how to act at all. Cuchulainn was an ugly customer to meet with, and the idea of that cake aforesaid flattened the very heart within him. What chance could he have, strong and brave though he was, with a man who could, when put in a passion, walk the country into earthquakes and knock thunderbolts into pancakes? Finn knew not on what hand to turn him, right or left, backward or forward, where to go when he could form no guess whatsoever. "Una," said he, "can you do nothing for me? Where's all your invention? Am I to be skibbered like a rabbit before your eyes, and to have my name disgraced forever in the sight of all my tribe, and me the best man among them? How am I to fight this Man Mountain, this huge cross between an earthquake and a thunderbolt, with a pancake in his pocket that was once—" "Be easy, Finn," replied Una. "Troth, I'm ashamed of you. Keep your toe in your pump, will you? Talking of pancakes, maybe we'll give him as good as any he brings with him, thunderbolt or otherwise. If I don't treat him to as smart feeding as he's got this many a day, never trust Una again. Leave him to me, and do just as I bid you." This relieved Finn very much, for after all he had great confidence in his wife, knowing as he did that she had got him out of many a quandary before. Una then drew the 9 woolen threads of different colours, which she always did to find out the best way of succeeding in anything of importance she went about. She then plaited them into 3 plaits with 3 colours in each, putting one on her right arm, one round her heart, and the third round her right ankle, for then she knew that nothing could fail her that she undertook. Having everything now prepared, she sent round to the neighbours and borrowed 21 iron griddles, which she took and kneaded into the hearts of 21 cakes of bread, and these she baked on the fire in the usual way, setting them aside in the cupboard according as they were done. She then put down a large pot of new milk, which she made into curds and whey. Having done all this, she sat down quite contented, waiting for his arrival on the next day about 2 o'clock, that being the hour at which he was expected, for Finn knew as much by the sucking of his thumb. Now this was a curious property that Finn's thumb had. In this very thing, moreover, he was very much resembled by his great foe Cuchulainn, for it was well known that the huge strength he possessed all lay in the middle finger of his right hand, and that, if he happened by any mischance to lose it, he was no more, for all his bulk, than a common man. At length the next day, Cuchulainn was seen coming across the valley, and Una knew that it was time to commence operations. She immediately brought the cradle, and made Finn to lie down in it, and cover himself up with the clothes. "You must pass for your own child," said she, "so just lie there snug, and say nothing, but be guided by me." About 2 o'clock, as he had been expected, Cuchulainn came in. "God save all here," said he. "Is this where the great Finn MacCool lives?" "Indeed it is, honest man," replied Una. "God save you kindly. Won't you be sitting?" "Thank you, ma'am," says he, sitting down. "You're Mrs. MacCool, I suppose?" "I am," said she, "and I have no reason, I hope, to be ashamed of my husband." "No," said the other, "he has the name of being the strongest and bravest man in Ireland, but for all that, there's a man not far from you that's very desirous of taking a shake with him. Is he at home?" "Why, then, no," she replied, and if ever a man left his house in a fury, he did. It appears that someone told him of a big bastoon of a giant called Cuchulainn being down at the causeway to look for him, and so he set out there to try if he could catch him. Troth, I hope, for the poor giant's sake, he won't meet with him, for if he does, Finn will make paste of him at once. "Well," said the other, "I am Cuchulainn, and I have been seeking him these 12 months, but he always kept clear of me, and I will never rest night or day till I lay my hands on him." At this, Una set up a loud laugh of great contempt, by the way, and looked at him as if he was only a mere handful of a man. "Did you ever see Finn?" said she, changing her manner all at once. "How could I?" said he. "He always took care to keep his distance." "I thought so," she replied. "I judge as much, and if you take my advice, you poor-looking creature, you'll pray night and day that you may never see him, for I tell you it will be a black day for you when you do. But in the meantime, you perceive that the wind's on the door, and Finn himself is from home. Maybe you'd be civil enough to turn the house, for it's always what Finn does when he's here." This was a startler even to Cuchulainn, but he got up, however, and after pulling the middle finger of his right hand until it cracked 3 times, he went outside, and getting his arms about the house, turned it as she had wished. When Finn saw this, he felt the sweat of fear oozing out through every pore of his skin, but Una, depending upon her woman's wit, felt not a whit daunted. "Arrah, then," said she, "as you are so civil, maybe you do another obliging turn for us, as Finn's not here to do it himself. You see, after this long stretch of dry weather we've had, we feel very badly off for want of water. Now, Finn says there's a fine spring well somewhere under the rocks behind the hill here below, and it was his intention to pull them asunder, but having heard of you, he left the place in such a fury that he never thought of it. Now, if you try to find it, troth, I'd feel it a kindness." She then brought Cuchulainn down to see the place, which was then all one solid rock, and, after looking at it for some time, he cracked his right middle finger 9 times, and, stooping down, tore a cleft about 400 feet deep, and 1/4 of a mile in length, which has since been christened by the name of Lumford's Glen. "You'll now come in," said she, "and eat a bit of such humble fare as we can give you. Finn, even though he and you are enemies, would scorn not to treat you kindly in his own house, and indeed, if I didn't do it even in his absence, he would not be pleased with me." She accordingly brought him in, and placing 6 of the cakes we spoke of before him, Together with a can or two of butter, a side of boiled bacon, and a stack of cabbage, she desired him to help himself, for this, be it known, was long before the invention of potatoes. Cucullin put one of the cakes in his mouth to take a huge whack out of it, when he made a thundering noise, something between a growl and a yell. "Blood and fury!" he shouted. "How is this? Here are two of my teeth out. What kind of bread is this you gave me?" "What's the matter?" said Una coolly. "Matter?" shouted the other again. "Why, here are the two best teeth in my head gone." "Why," said she, "that's Finn's bread, the only bread he ever eats when at home. But indeed, I forgot to tell you that nobody can eat it but himself, and that child in the cradle there. I thought, however, that as you were reported to be rather a stout little fellow of your size, you might be able to manage it, and I did not wish to affront a man that thinks himself able to fight Finn. Here's another cake. Maybe it's not so hard as that." Cucullin at the moment was not only hungry, but ravenous, so accordingly made a fresh set at the second cake, and immediately another yell was heard twice as loud as the first. "Thunder and gibbets!" he roared. "Take your bread out of this, or I will not have a tooth in my head. There's another pair of them gone." "Well, honest man," replied Una, "if you're not able to eat the bread, say so quietly, and don't be wakening the child in the cradle there. There now, he's awake upon me." Finn now gave a skirl that startled the giant as coming from such a youngster as he was supposed to be. "Mother," said he, "I'm hungry. Get me something to eat." Una went over, and putting into his hand a cake that had no griddle in it, Finn, whose appetite in the meantime had been sharpened by seeing eating going forward, soon swallowed it. Cucullin was thunderstruck, and secretly thanked his stars that he had the good fortune to miss meeting Finn, for, as he said to himself, "I'd have no chance with a man who could eat such bread as that, which even his son, that's but in the cradle, can munch before my eyes." "I'd like to take a glimpse at the lad in the cradle," he said to Una, "for I can tell you that the infant who can manage that nutriment is no joke to look at, or to feed of a scarce summer." "With all the veins of my heart," replied Una. "Get up, acushla, and show the decent little man something that won't be unworthy of your father, Finn McCool." Finn, who was dressed for the occasion as much like a boy as possible, got up, and bringing Cucullin out, "Are you strong?" said he. "Thunder and ounds!" exclaimed the other. "What a voice in so small a chap!" "Are you strong?" said Finn again. "Are you able to squeeze water out of that white stone?" he asked, putting one into Cucullin's hand. The latter squeezed and squeezed the stone, but in vain. "Ah, you're a poor creature," said Finn. "You, a giant! Give me the stone here, and when I'll show you what Finn's little son can do, you may then judge of what my daddy himself is." Finn then took the stone, and exchanging it for the curds, he squeezed the latter until the whey, as clear as water, oozed out in a little shower from his hand. "I'll now go in," said he, "to my cradle, for I scorn to lose my time with anyone that's not able to eat my daddy's bread, or squeeze water out of a stone. Bedad, you had better be out of this before he comes back, for if he catches you, it's in flummery he'd have you in 2 minutes." Cucullin, seeing what he had seen, was of the same opinion himself, his knees knocked together with the terror of Finn's return, and he accordingly hastened to bid Una farewell, and to assure her that from that day out he never wished to hear of, much less to see, her husband. "I admit fairly that I'm not a match for him," said he. "Strong as I am, tell him I will avoid him as I would the plague, and that I will make myself scarce in this part of the country while I live." Finn, into the meantime, had gone into the cradle, where he lay very quietly, his heart at his mouth with delight that Cucullin was about to take his departure without discovering the tricks that had been played off on him. "It's well for you," said Una, "that he doesn't happen to be here, for it's nothing but hawk's meat he'd make of you." "I know that," said Cucullin. "Divil a thing else he'd make of me. But before I go, will you let me feel what kind of teeth Finn's lad has got that can eat griddle bread like that?" "With all pleasure in life," said she. "Only as they're far back in his head, you must put your finger a good way in." Cucullin was surprised to find such a powerful set of grinders in one so young, but he was still much more so on finding, when he took his hand from Finn's mouth, that he had left the very finger upon which his whole strength depended behind him. He gave one loud groan, and fell down at once with terror and weakness. This was all Finn wanted, who now knew that his most powerful and bitterest enemy was at his mercy. He started out of the cradle, and in a few minutes the great Cuchulainn, that was for such a length of time the terror of him and all his followers, lay a corpse before him. Thus did Finn, through the wit and invention of Una his wife, succeed in overcoming his enemy by cunning, which he never could have done by force.
End of chapter 18.
Chapter 19 of Celtic Fairy Tales. Celtic Fairy Tales, selected and edited by Joseph Jacobs. Chapter 19. Fair, Brown and Trembling. King Hugh Curucha lived in Tirconal, and he had 3 daughters, whose names were Fair, Brown and Trembling. Fair and Brown had new dresses and went to church every Sunday. Trembling was kept at home to do the cooking and work. They could not let her go out of the house at all, for she was more beautiful than the other 2, and they were in dread she might marry before themselves. They carried on in this way for 7 years. At the end of 7 years, the son of the king of Emania fell in love with the eldest sister. One Sunday morning, after the other 2 had gone to church, the old henwife came into the kitchen to Trembling and said, "It's at church you ought to be this day, instead of working here at home." "How could I go?" said Trembling. "I have no clothes good enough to wear at church, and if my sisters were to see me there, they'd kill me for going out of the house." "I'll give you," said the henwife, "a finer dress than either of them has ever seen. And now tell me, what dress will you have?" "I'll have," said Trembling, "a dress as white as snow, and green shoes for my feet." Then the henwife put on the cloak of darkness, clipped a piece from the old clothes the young woman had on, and asked for the whitest robes in the world, and the most beautiful that could be found, and a pair of green shoes. That moment she had the robe and the shoes, and she brought them to Trembling, who put them on. When Trembling was dressed and ready, the henwife said, "I have a honey bird here to sit on your right shoulder, and a honey finger to put on your left. At the door stands a milk-white mare with a golden saddle for you to sit on, and a golden bridle to hold in your hand." Trembling sat on the golden saddle, and when she was ready to start, the henwife said, "You must not go inside the door of the church, and the minute the people rise up at the end of Mass, do you make off, and ride home as fast as the mare will carry you." When Trembling came to the door of the church, there was no one inside who could get a glimpse of her, but was striving to know who she was. And when they saw her hurrying away at the end of Mass, they ran out to overtake her. But no use in their running. She was away before any man could come near her. From the minute she left the church till she got home, she overtook the wind before her and outstripped the wind behind. She came down at the door, went in, and found the henwife had dinner ready. She put off the white robes and had on her old dress in a twinkling. When the 2 sisters came home, the henwife asked, "Have you any news today from the church?" "We have great news," said they. "We saw a wonderful grand lady at the church door. The like of the robes she had we have never seen on woman before. It's little that was thought of our dresses beside what she had on, and there wasn't a man at the church, from the king to the beggar, but was trying to look at her and know who she was." The sisters would give no peace till they had 2 dresses like the robes of the strange lady, but honey birds and honey fingers were not to be found. Next Sunday the 2 sisters went to church again, and left the youngest at home to cook dinner. After they had gone, the henwife came in and asked, "Will you go to church today?" "I would go," said Trembling, "if I could get the going." "What robe will you wear?" asked the henwife. "The finest black satin that can be found, and red shoes for my feet." What colour do you want the mare to be?" "I want her to be so black and so glossy that I can see myself in her body." The henwife put on the cloak of darkness and asked for the robes and the mare. That moment she had them. When Trembling was dressed, the henwife put the honey bird on her right shoulder and the honey finger on her left. The saddle on the mare was silver, and so was the bridle. When Trembling sat in the saddle and was going away, the henwife ordered her strictly not to go inside the door of the church, but to rush away as soon as the people rose at the end of Mass, and hurry home on the mare before any man could stop her. That Sunday the people were more astonished than ever, and gazed at her more than the first time, and all they were thinking of was to know who she was. But they had no chance, for the moment the people rose at the end of Mass, she slipped from the church, was in the silver saddle, and home before a man could stop her or talk to her. The henwife had the dinner ready. Trembling took off her satin robe and had on her old clothes before her sisters got home. "What news have you today?" asked the henwife of the sisters when they came from the church. "Oh, we saw the grand strange lady again, and it's little that any man could think of our dresses after looking at the robes of satin that she had on. And all at church, from high to low, had their mouths open, gazing at her, and no man was looking at us." The two sisters gave neither rest nor peace till they got dresses as nearly like the strange lady's robes as they could find. Of course they were not so good, for the like of those robes could not be found in Erin. When the third Sunday came, Fair and Brown went to church dressed in black satin. They left Trembling at home to work in the kitchen, and told her to be sure and have dinner ready when they came back. After they had gone and were out of sight, the henwife came to the kitchen and said, "Well, my dear, are you for church today?" "I would go if I had a new dress to wear." "I'll get you any dress you ask for. What dress would you like?" asked the henwife. "A dress red as a rose from the waist down, and white as snow from the waist up, a cape of green on my shoulders, and a hat on my head with a red, a white, and a green feather in it, and shoes for my feet with the toes red, the middle white, and the backs and heels green." The henwife put on the cloak of darkness, wished for all these things, and had them. When Trembling was dressed, the henwife put the honey bird on her right shoulder, and the honey finger on her left, and placing the hat on her head, clipped a few hairs from one lock and a few from another with her scissors, and that moment the most beautiful golden hair was flowing down over the girl's shoulders. Then the henwife asked what kind of mare she would ride. She said, white with blue and gold colored diamond-shaped spots all over her body, on her back a saddle of gold, and on her head a golden bridle. The mare stood there before the door, and a bird sitting between her ears, which began to sing as soon as Trembling was in the saddle, and never stopped till she came home from the church. The fame of the beautiful strange lady had gone out through the world, and all the princes and great men that were in it came to church that Sunday, each one hoping that it was himself would have her home with him after Mass. The son of the king of Emania forgot all about the eldest sister, and remained outside the church, so as to catch the strange lady before she could hurry away. The church was more crowded than ever before, and there were 3 times as many outside. There was such a throng before the church that Trembling could only come inside the gate. As soon as the people were rising at the end of Mass, the lady slipped out through the gate, was in the golden saddle in an instant, and sweeping away ahead of the wind. But if she was, the Prince of Emania was at her side, and seizing her by the foot, he ran with the mare for 30 perches, and never let go of the beautiful lady till the shoe was pulled from her foot, and he was left behind with it in his hand. She came home as fast as the mare could carry her, and was thinking all the time that the henwife would kill her for losing the shoe. Seeing her so vexed and so changed in the face, the old woman asked, "What's the trouble that's on you now?" "Oh, I've lost one of the shoes of my feet," said Trembling. "Don't mind that, don't be vexed," said the henwife. "Maybe it's the best thing that ever happened to you." Then Trembling gave up all the things she had to the henwife, put on her old clothes, and went to work in the kitchen. When the sisters came home, the henwife asked, "Have you any news from the church?" "We have indeed," said they, "for we saw the grandest sight today. The strange lady came again, in grander array than before. On herself and the horse she rode were the finest colours of the world, and between the ears of the horse was a bird which never stopped singing from the time she came till she went away. The lady herself is the most beautiful woman ever seen by man in Erin." After Trembling had disappeared from the church, the son of the king of Emania said to the other king's sons, "I will have that lady for my own." They all said, "You didn't win her just by taking the shoe off her foot. You'll have to win her by the point of the sword. You'll have to fight for her with us before you can call her your own." "Well," said the son of the king of Emania, "when I find the lady that shoe will fit, I'll fight for her, never fear, before I leave her to any of you." Then all the king's sons were uneasy and anxious to know who was she that lost the shoe, and they began to travel all over Erin to know could they find her. The Prince of Emania and all the others went in a great company together, and made the round of Erin. They went everywhere, north, south, east, and west. They visited every place where a woman was to be found, and left not a house in the kingdom they did not search, to know could they find the woman the shoe would fit, not caring whether she was rich or poor, or high or low degree. The Prince of Emania always kept her shoe, and when the young women saw it, they had great hopes, for it was of proper size, neither large nor small, and it would beat any man to know of what material it was made. One thought it would fit her if she cut a little from her great toe, and another, with too short a foot, put something in the tip of her stocking. But no use. They only spoiled their feet, and were curing them for months afterwards. The two sisters, Fair and Brown, heard that the princes of the world were looking all over Erin for the woman that could wear the shoe, and every day they were talking of trying it on. And one day Trembling spoke up and said, "Maybe it's my foot that the shoe will fit." "Oh, the breaking of the dog's foot on you! Why say you so when you were at home every Sunday?" They were that way waiting and scolding the younger sister till the princes were near the place. The day they were to come, the sisters put Trembling in a closet, and locked the door on her. When the company came to the house, the Prince of Emania gave the shoe to the sisters, but though they tried and tried, it would fit neither of them. "Is there any other young woman in the house?" asked the prince. "There is," said Trembling, speaking up in the closet. "I'm here." "Oh, we have her for nothing but to put out the ashes," said the sisters. But the prince and the others wouldn't leave the house till they had seen her, so the two sisters had to open the door. When Trembling came out, the shoe was given to her, and it fitted exactly. The Prince of Emania looked at her and said, "You are the woman the shoe fits, and you are the woman I took the shoe from." Then Trembling spoke up and said, "Do you stay here till I return." Then she went to the henwife's house. The old woman put on the cloak of darkness, got everything for her she had the first Sunday at church, and put her on the white mare in the same fashion. Then Trembling rode along the highway to the front of the house. All who saw her the first time said, "This is the lady we saw at church." Then she went away a second time, and a second time came back on the black mare in the second dress which the henwife gave her. All who saw her the second Sunday said, "That is the lady we saw at church." A third time she asked for a short absence, and soon came back, on the third mare and in the third dress. All who saw her the third time said, "That is the lady we saw at church." Every man was satisfied, and knew that she was the woman. Then all the princes and great men spoke up, and said to the son of the king of Emania, "You'll have to fight now for her before we let her go with you." "I'm here before you, ready for combat," answered the prince. The son of the king of Lochlin stepped forth. The struggle began, and a terrible struggle it was. They fought for 9 hours, and then the son of the king of Lochlin stopped and gave up his claim and left the field. Next day the son of the king of Spain fought 6 hours and yielded his claim. On the third day the son of the king of Nierfoy fought 8 hours and stopped. The fourth day the son of the king of Greece fought 6 hours and stopped. On the fifth day no more strange princes wanted to fight, and all the sons of kings in Erin said they would not fight with a man of their own land, that the strangers had had their chance, and, as no others came to claim the woman, she belonged of right to the son of the king of Emania. The marriage day was fixed, and the invitations were sent out. The wedding lasted for a year and a day. When the wedding was over, the king's son brought home the bride, and when the time came, a son was born. The young woman sent for her eldest sister Fair to be with her and care for her. One day, when Trembling was well, and when her husband was away hunting, the two sisters went out to walk, and when they came to the seaside, the eldest pushed the youngest sister in. A great whale came and swallowed her. The eldest sister came home alone, and the husband asked, "Where is your sister?" "She has gone home to her father in Ballyshannon. Now that I'm well, I don't need her." "Well," said the husband, looking at her, "I'm in dread it's my wife that has gone." "Oh no," said she, "it's my sister Fair that's gone." Since the sisters were very much alike, the prince was in doubt. That night he put his sword between them and said, "If you are my wife, this sword will get warm. If not, it will stay cold." In the morning when he rose up, the sword was as cold as when he put it there. It happened when the two sisters were walking by the seashore that a little cowboy was down by the water minding cattle and saw Fair pushing Tremble into the sea. And next day when the tide came in, he saw the whale swim up and throw her out on the sand. When she was on the sand, she said to the cowboy, "When you go home in the evening with the cows, tell the master that my sister Fair pushed me into the sea yesterday, that a whale swallowed me, and then threw me out, but will come again and swallow me with the coming of the next tide. Then he'll go out with the tide, and come again with tomorrow's tide, and throw me again on the strand. The whale will cast me out 3 times, I am under the enchantment of this whale, and cannot leave the beach or escape myself. Unless my husband saves me before I am swallowed the fourth time, I shall be lost. He must come and shoot the whale with a silver bullet when he turns on the broad of his back. Under the breast fin of the whale is a reddish brown spot. My husband must hit him in that spot, for it is the only place in which he can be killed. When the cowboy got home, the eldest sister gave him a draught of oblivion, and he did not tell. Next day he went again to the sea. The whale came and cast Trembling on shore again. She asked the boy, "Did you tell the master what I told you to tell him?" "I did not," said he. "I forgot." "How did you forget?" asked she. "The woman of the house gave me a drink that made me forget." "Well, don't forget telling him this night, and if she gives you a drink, don't take it from her." As soon as the cowboy came home, the eldest sister offered him a drink. He refused to take it till he had delivered his message and told all to the master. The third day the prince went down with his gun and a silver bullet in it. He was not long down when the whale came and threw Trembling upon the beach as the 2 days before. She had no power to speak to her husband till he had killed the whale. Then the whale went out, turned over once on the broad of his back, and showed the spot for a moment only. That moment the prince fired. He had but the one chance, and a short one at that, but he took it, and hit the spot, and the whale, mad with pain, made the sea all around red with blood and died. That minute Trembling was able to speak, and went home with her husband, who sent word to her father what the eldest sister had done. The father came and told him any death he chose to give her to give it. The prince told the father he would leave her life and death with himself. The father had her put out then on the sea in a barrel, with provisions in it for 7 years. In time Trembling had a second child, a daughter. The prince and she sent the cowboy to school, and trained him up as one of their own children, and said, "If the little girl that is born to us now lives, no other man in the world would get her but him." The cowboy and the prince's daughter lived on till they were married. The other said to her husband, "You could not have saved me from the whale but for the little cowboy. On that account I don't grudge him my daughter." The son of the king of Emania and Trembling had 14 children, and they lived happily till the 2 died of old age. End of chapter 19. Fair, Brown and Trembling. Read by Lars Rolander.